In Senegal, at least 4 protesters are dead as violent demonstrations over the country's jailed opposition leader continue. Imtiaz Tyab is joining us now from London today, following that story as well as others. Imtiaz, what can you tell us about this?
Hey, Anne-Marie, good to talk to you. Yeah, Senegal, a very tense place right now. And a lot of these protests really revolve around an allegation of sexual assault. Let's unpack this a little bit. In what's triggered some of the biggest protests this West African nation has seen for years are allegations that a very popular opposition leader, now his name is Ousmane Sonko, raped a woman who was working for him as a masseuse. Now, he denies these allegations, but thousands of Senegalese, mostly men it should be said, marched through the streets last week rallying against the country's president, Macky Sall, who they say framed Sonko as part of a political smear campaign. Whatever the case, women rights groups say that they fear this angry reaction could be devastating for victims of sexual assault who now may be too afraid to come forward following all of this unrest. Okay, let's cross over now to Myanmar, where anti-coup protests continue to spread across the Asian country. According to witnesses, at least 2 protesters were killed by gunshot wounds to the head on Monday. In Yangon, the country's largest city, it remains in lockdown as part of the uprising against the country's military rulers who seized full power last month. Now, according to the United Nations, the military has killed at least 50 people involved in strikes and protests demanding that the generals reverse their coup and restore Aung San Suu Kyi's democratically elected government to power. Okay, moving over to Afghanistan. Well, there's a pretty serious letter that has been written by the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to leaders of the country's government, and let's just say it's attracting an awful lot of attention. In this letter, which has been described as blunt, Secretary Blinken said that the Biden administration wants to jumpstart stalled negotiations between the Afghan government and the Taliban, and is calling for a 3-month reduction in violence leading to a ceasefire. Now, negotiations between the Afghan government and the Taliban began in September as part of the February 2020 agreement between the armed group and the Trump administration. But since then, these talks have really faltered over big issues like prisoner exchanges and restrictions on violence. And finally, Pope Francis has ended his historic tour of Iraq. The pontiff flew home to Vatican City from Baghdad Airport after visiting conflict-torn cities, meeting with Christian and Muslim leaders, and preaching peace and coexistence over war. Now, Iraqis really welcomed the Pope, saying that this was a chance for them to show the world that their nation is trying to overcome the challenges that they've faced and hopefully present it in a new light. Now, during Francis's trip, the first ever papal trip to Iraq, he toured 4 cities, including Mosul, the former ISIS stronghold, much of which still lies in ruins, telling Iraqis that, and I'm going to quote here, "Peace is more powerful than war." Pretty wise words from the Pope there. Anne-Marie.
Indeed, Imtiaz, thank you so much.